In this clip, we're going to be looking at our interactive piece for this concert, the Basin Street Blues. Now, the Basin Street Blues is one of the most famous jazz songs of all time. It was written by an American composer called Spencer Williams in 1928, coincidentally the same year that George Gershwin wrote An American in Paris. So jazz was already well established as a style at this point in time. It was written as a song, and it was very, very popular. It talks about taking a trip on a steamboat to New Orleans, where the jazz cats meet, as the lyrics tell us. And throughout history, people travelled down the Mississippi River from many parts of America to New Orleans, the home of jazz. And when they arrived, they would go, in many cases, to Basin Street to hear great music and meet other musicians. And you can listen to a recording of Basin Street Blues on the MSO's Education Week Resources webpage. It'd be really good to have a listen to. Now, what Basin Street Blues does is that it introduces a concept that is basically at the core of jazz. And it's not just jazz, I think it's at the core of music, really, call and response. So this is the way that Basin Street Blues starts, with what we would describe as the call. So it's like teaching somebody something. It's like, this is how it goes, and they play it back to you. And then the next phrase of Basin Street Blues goes like this. So all of a sudden we're in this dialogue, and if you put that with harmony, with the harmony of jazz, it sounds something like this. And I'll pretend that I'm James Morrison playing the trumpet. It'll be a bit of a stretch for your imagination. There we go. So that's the first part of Basin Street Blues. Now, Laurence, what if I changed my call a little bit and decided to improvise a little bit around that melody, which James Morrison does all the time, and I went... It's still the same melody, but I've changed the rhythm, I've added notes, and I've started to make stuff up, and that's called improvising. And that happens a lot in jazz as well. So if I was going to play it like that, with the accompaniment, it would sound like this. James would do a much better job of it, but that's the idea. I can just start making stuff up around that melody, and that is improvisation. We're going to be hearing a lot of that in this concert with James Morrison. So for those of you wondering about the notes of the blues scale, if you wanted to improvise in the key of C, a normal C major scale is just... What we do is we change the third to a minor third, so E becomes E flat. Still going up in the major scale, F, G, A, and then we get to the seventh, which normally would be a B natural, that changes to a B flat. And though the E flat and the B flat become our blue notes in the key of C. And all of a sudden, it's very easy to start improvising around those notes. If we're thinking of C, you could even add the flattened fifth, which in this key is F sharp. And it's essentially how it works. So we've created some activities that you might like to do to practice this idea of call and response, as well as thinking some more about the notes of the blues scale, the bluesy notes that we've been talking about. You could work individually or as a class to use the recording of Basin Street Blues on the MSO's resources page to find the parts of the song that use call and response as a technique. You could also learn the words and melody by listening to the recording and using the sheet music on the resources page as well, and practice singing along to the recording. That's always lots of fun to do. If you're a secondary student who wants to play an instrument, why not challenge yourself? Find the parts of the song that use call and response and see that if you can play them on your instrument. You could also work out a blues scale on your instrument and have a go at improvising over the recording. And all you're doing with the blues scale is taking a major scale and adding a minor third and a minor seventh. That's essentially all it is. You can even improvise on 2 or 3 notes if it's something that you're finding challenging. But if you need a bigger challenge, why not compose your own call and response piece as a class and write it down or record what you create? That'd be a great activity to do. And when you come along to the concerts, don't forget to bring with you in your head the responses you practiced or created using your body percussion, rhythm and melody. We're going to use them in the concert with James Morrison. And in our next clip, we're going to be talking about the concerts and what to expect when we meet each other at Hamer Hall.